You're listening to Dirty Feet, a podcast from No More Radio.
Vous écoutez le podcast Dirty Feet sur les ondes de No More Radio.
Hosted by,
animé par
Allison Burns,
JD Papillon,
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna move you.
This week on the Dirty Feet podcast, I'm joined by Ghislaine Doté, who is the artistic director of Virtuo, which is a company that she founded in 2004. She's a choreographer and performer. She's originally from the Central African Republic. So she grew up in the Ivory Coast, and she studied several different art forms there, which I want to ask you about in a moment. And then she moved to Montreal here, where you did a double, your bachelor at ENG in both performance and creation. And since then, you've performed for FLAC, Cinedance, Cirque du Soleil. So you think you can dance Canada, all over the place in Montreal and in Toronto as well. And of course, with your own company now, you're established both as a creator and a performer. Ghislaine is also choreographing a musical by the Beautiful City Theatre Company called Next to Normal. That'll be coming up this month at the Centaur Theatre in Montreal. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful. So yeah, I did want to start at the beginning because you have training in dance and in choral singing and in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu.
Shaolin Kung Fu, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
In Ivory Coast, we are really, really into martial arts. So we watch movies when we're really young, Jackie Chan and all those guys. So for sure, as I was watching those movies, I liked the movement aspect of it, and especially Shaolin Kung Fu, because all the movies were Kung Fu movies. So I kept begging my mom, can I take classes? And she was like, no, until I really, really insisted until I was 15. Then she said yes, so I went for Shaolin Kung Fu as I was dancing on the side. But for me, Kung Fu is another passion.
And do you find it separate? Like they are both very, physical activities.
They are. And in a way, I mean, Kung Fu is a form of dance. Well, to me, the way I see how the movement is so logical. One movement goes to the next, the way it goes to the next, the way it transitions, the way it uses natural torsions or oppositions in the body. It's so natural that for me, it's a form of dance. Yeah.
Is it something that you've kept up with throughout your studies at ECAM and beyond?
No, when I moved to Montreal, I looked for classes, but there were no classes like in Africa. Like in Africa, we had 3 hours classes 3 times a week, and we would sweat like crazy during those 3 hours. Obviously, it was very intense. And here, the classes were either an hour or an hour and a half. So I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to learn in so little time. It was a different culture for me that, the classes of an hour and a half, that's just not enough. So, I went for Taekwondo, and I found Taekwondo classes that were 2 hours. and I did it for a little bit. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now contemporary dance does tend to have this label of being very all encompassing or borrowing quite a bit. Right. Is it something, is that something that has come into your work and in some way?
Yeah, definitely. How should I put this? Well, now with time, as I've been a choreographer for a while, and when you start with what you know, and I guess what I knew was actually the martial arts, and also, I mean, I did a lot of jazz when I was in Ivory Coast, African dance. And then starting my bachelor in contemporary dance. So I was integrating all those influences in my work. And the more and more I found that to touch the public, to touch the audience, I needed to find a vocabulary that would, in a way, be universal in terms of, I guess, emotional intelligence, so that people could relate to an emotion. So I didn't want to be stuck to one form. So I'm always rediscovering ways to mix things together so that the audience can relate, basically. Yeah.
I'm seeing in your resume of choreographers here, working with Cirque du Soleil, and So You Think You Can Dance Canada and Company Flack, where there's a big emphasis on kind of the technique and borrowing from the classical technique of it.
Yeah.
Is this something that is also evident in your choreographic style coming out of that you tend to value the same sort of strengths?
I would say yes and no. For me, technique is more a means to an end rather than an end itself. It was important for me to go through like classical training so that I can say I did it. I didn't want to shy away from it, although I don't really have the body for it, but I can do it. So that was important for me to be able to do it. And also, I find that the lines in ballet are they are helpful for contemporary dance. I mean, in contemporary dance, we use lots of lines. So for me, it was just to refine my movements that I did ballet. But in my work, I cannot say that it is the most important thing because I have dancers that don't have a lot of technique, but I believe that they have their own technique. Like they have their way of moving. And sometimes if I integrate a ballet movement on them, well, for me, it's more like, well, I'm challenging you to try something. But if you don't do it perfectly like a ballerina, I don't really care. All I want you is to, I guess, just be ready to express something with whatever you're given. And the body you're given is fine with me. It's just that what's important for me is to be able to challenge that body, though. So, yeah.
I think other than these physical attributes we've been talking about, what is the mission of Virtuo? What is the style of the company, or what sets it apart?
Yeah. When I started, I was all about expressing emotions, finding the clearest way to express human pain, sufferings, thoughts, but really go deep into those emotions. And as I said, finding ways in the vocabulary to have the audience relate to what's being expressed. And with time, I found that I started shifting, using more rhythm, becoming more vocal with my work. And I started being interested in musical theater as I found that it was super expressive. The use of the voice for me was very similar to the use of the body in dance. So I thought by combining the two, I could create like a new form of expression, which would marry narration, which is more musical theater style, and abstraction, which is more contemporary dance style. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, mix the two. And I would say that that's the mandate of my company is still to express emotions. But again, as I said, I'm always looking for new ways. And for now, really musical theater and contemporary dance is what I want to do.
Wonderful. And again, music, being a choral singer when you were growing up as well, has that continued to be a part of your life? Or was this a rediscovery when you were cast in Berger and Plamadon's acclaimed musical Starmina? That was back in 2008.
It was a rediscovery when I was cast in Starmania, and I was a dancer, and I wanted to express myself like the singer, so I wanted to sing more. So from then I went to take private lessons, and now I'm studying actually in voice and composition. But to make a connection, when I founded my company, I started also composing music by ear. And most of my choreographies have been played with the music I composed. However, last year I decided that, okay, I need to understand that music I'm composing, understand the theory aspect of it and get better. So yeah, I'm studying it right now.
Wow. Were you collaborating with a musician when you were writing your own scores, or?
No, I just did it. Who knows if it's good? Yeah.
Also, on the note of musical theater, of course, is Next to Normal, which is the reason we're sitting down today.
Yeah.
It's a production by Beautiful City Theatre that's going to be presented at the Centaur Theatre this month in Montreal. So can you tell me about how you got involved with this production?
The artistic director, Callie Armstrong, she approached me. She told me that she wanted dance in the show because Next to Normal is a show that doesn't have dance. And she wanted to talk about the inner life of the characters because she felt it was missing. So she knows that I'm doing that process of musical theater and contemporary dance. So, I guess she knew I would be interested in the project, and I was. And when we started, we've been trying to figure out what would be the place of dance in the show. Seeing that it's the first time that this show's gonna have dance in it. So, it was important to define that.
So you've previously worked as a choreographer on musicals. Was that on?
Yeah, actually, my first one was with
Broadway.
Exactly, again with BCT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
great.
And
So how was your first time kind of entering the theater scene with choreography and working with primarily actors as subjects?
Yeah, the first one was hard because I didn't have my dancers with me. And I had to choreograph on non-dancers, actors. Well, some of them could dance, but I cannot say they were dancers. So it's a learning process, learning to adapt movements to what people can do, trying to make them look good, make the show look good. It's a lot of work, but what I like is really being faithful to, being faithful to the play, like being faithful to Godspell when it was Godspell, what it was about. When something wasn't right, like I had to change it, even if it was close to the show, because we cannot do something that's not right. We have to talk about what it's about. So, it was a good experience.
So just as you were talking about before, having the goal of creating a context for your movement, is there, that traditional idea of within the box, within parameters, you're going to find a new way to be creative? Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And within Godspell, the music is very upbeat, 70s, pop, and gospel. So a mix of all that. So, of course, I had to obey, in a sense, kind of the rules of the show. I couldn't create something contemporary then because that's not what the show was about. So, you kind of just really follow. It's kind of like a dance. So,
So you have a historical context as well as like a situational context and to work within.
Yeah.
And so what is that context for Next to Normal?
So for Next to Normal, well, I read the script to really understand. The context is a bipolar mother whose sickness affects her whole family. And then we see, the different dramas that happen because of her sickness. And also the causes of her sickness. So it's really like deep and emotional, and the music itself calls for a movement that's not pop, except for certain moments. And that was the thing. At the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm going to go with that idea that it's going to be this type of movement. And then I realized throughout the show that no, it keeps changing. And again, it's just a matter of listening to just little details. Sometimes there's going to be a word in the script that's going to just tell you, oh, maybe try this. Maybe try a movement that's like this. And sometimes it's just in the studio. The dancers are going to try something and it's like, oh, it works. And so it's just really listening and
So do you find this sort of process just as collaborative as when you're creating your own work with Virtuo?
It is more collaborative. I need to work more with Callie, because she also has a vision of how she's going to adapt the play. So for sure we had to work together, and that's actually harder. Because when I do my shows, it's my show, so it's my vision for the whole thing. So sharing a vision with somebody else it's harder. And also, it's not a dance show, it's a musical. And so, in a sense, I think the convention is that the actors are first. Mm-hmm. So to fit the dance in that, it's also like a challenge for me, like like spatially, musically, to fit the dance and with where the actors are to, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Have you created work outside of musical theater since beginning this journey?
I have created my own piece, which was a mix of musical theater and contemporary dance, a piece about marriage. And it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Because, again, as I was working on that piece, I realized, well, I think I need to write an actual script. And I was like, well, I've never done that. And then I realized, oh, here is one more thing I need to learn. But I wrote the script. I wrote it last year. And we've presented excerpts of the piece itself. The piece is called Marriage. We've presented excerpts of it in Montreal, even in London, and in Toronto. And again, it's a work in progress. And again, as I said, it's just like for me learning new forms so that I can communicate an idea. So if it means learning to write a script, well, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you may have seen Marriage at Agora in 2012,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So did this allow you to change the priorities when it was your context to prioritize what you wanted to, perhaps the movement? Or
you mean for Next to Normal?
No, for Marriage, just in the way that we were talking about how, certain elements of a musical theater production have to come before the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Once you engaged in this project that was your own,
mm-hmm.
How do you prioritize there?
Well, that's the thing. I guess in this process, I try to have everything, I guess, equal, and in a sense that it just melts, like a text will melt into a rhythm and will become a dance or change into music, or sometimes deconstructing a song so that it becomes a dance or a rhythm. So really mixing those forms together rather than separating them. So that's more my process. For sure, I try to do a bit of it in Next to Normal, but again, it's not my show. And so, yeah, it's a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One context that we haven't spoken about is the context of your race. You've been rewarded a nomination from the Black History Month and the Gloria Mitchell-Elong Award for your choreographic body of work.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about what that means to you?
Wow, because it was a long time ago. It's hard because I guess I'd rather have a reward because I'm a good choreographer than because I'm a Black choreographer. But for sure, it's good to be acknowledged by my community. I wish I would be acknowledged by the community in general rather than the Black community. And it's nothing against the Black community. It's really because otherwise then you become the Black choreographer or the Black dancer. And I like to think that I'm more than than my race. Yeah, that's one thing that I find important that I would like. Yeah.
Fair enough. Can you tell me how you're going to get there in terms of like your next steps? Because we've been talking about how you're interested in learning new skills, and now you're starting to write as well and continuing to develop Marriage. What else is on your horizon?
Well, right now I'm actually preparing to go to London for a month and a half. I'm gonna choreograph there and make contacts in the musical theater field as well as in the dance field. So again, being in both worlds. And I hope to eventually do some training there and maybe go back and forth between England and Montreal. Because in reality, the musical theater scene in Montreal doesn't really export itself. I mean, we do shows and they stay here. maybe if I were in Toronto, it would be different. But for me, it's important to keep going, to not just create a show and it dies here. I want it to go places and to have a life. So, I would like to, in a sense, import myself or export myself in England and see, what it has to offer.
Obviously, engaging in a second art form, moving from not just dance but also musical theater, does open a lot of doors. Did you find any were closed by the fact that you were now entering a unilingual form? That now that you're moving towards an art form that is musical theater, and these shows that you've worked on that are English theater productions, whereas dance tends to be non-lingual, anybody can enjoy it and understand it. Did that close some opportunities for you, or make the fish tank seem smaller?
Well, yeah. I know that Marriage, when I presented it at l'Agora, the audience really loved it. But the dance critics, they thought it was too narrative and I guess too popular art form in a sense. So, and I realized that the contemporary dance scene in Montreal is really into more... it has its own style. There's a Montreal style of contemporary dance. And I realized that that's not what I want. That it's no longer what I want. I really want to mix the two. And I do want the audience to enjoy and, laugh. Like there were so many funny moments in Marriage, and to have the audience just laughing with their heart, it was just, it was great, and I think this is what I want, that connection with the audience that I cannot get with just, silent movement. I need to engage them with songs, but also I want to have those silent moments with dancing, and in a sense also educate the audience to enjoy both as I do. So I don't know, maybe that's selfish, but yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Well, in the meantime, you can check out Next to Normal, which is being presented by Beautiful City Theatre. It's a musical. It's going to be playing at the Centaur Theatre in Old Montreal. It's playing May 15th to the 23rd at a few different times. You can check out the whole schedule on the Centaur Theatre website or on the Beautiful City Theatre website. Dates are on both. And we've been speaking with the choreographer of the production, who is also the artistic director of Virtuo and an accomplished dancer, choreographer herself. Ghislaine Doté, thank you so much for joining us. The 25th anniversary of the Montreal Fringe Festival is just around the corner. The programming has been announced, so you can check out montrealfringe.ca. You can even search by subject and find all the dance shows. There are 7 dance shows in the festival this year and plenty other movement involved in different multidisciplinary performances. The festival itself takes place between June 1st and 21st in Montreal's Plateau Miland neighborhood. Again, details are on the site. We'll be bringing you more coverage later.
Dirty Feet was previously recorded at the Montreal Improv Theatre and is currently recorded out of Mainline Theatre. Thanks, dudes.
Dirty Feet est produit et animé par,
Produced and hosted by Allison Burns,
JD Papillon,
et Stéphanie Moret-Robert.
You can find out more about our show at nomoreradio.com, follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet, and find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast.
Vous pouvez écouter tous nos épisodes sur notre site web ou vous pouvez vous abonner également sur iTunes à notre podcast.
Listen to past episodes on website or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes.
While you're there, be sure to give us a rating and or leave a comment to help us spread the word.
Tune in next week for a whole new show.